I often think about the psychological and emotional consequences of dedicating oneself to the Brotherhood. What taxes you have to pay that aren't seen when you join the Assassin Brotherhood and become an assassin. Especially if you become a field assassin, where you need to spend vast amounts of time traveling by yourself. If you look at AC1, if you look at Origins, if you look at AC2, Mirage, these protagonists spend a lot of their time by themselves traveling from point A to point B. It must be very difficult and even kind of like a monastic existence to be a true assassin. I think AC Origins is probably the best of the games to show the idea of loneliness, because the map of Egypt is so huge compared to any other map, and Bayek often finds himself dwarfed by impossible mountains and lost in unforgiving sands. It's a feeling that I never really got from Valhalla or Odyssey. Odyssey felt like a very pretty game that I never really felt lonely in, and Valhalla had such a uninspired open world design that it didn't really rouse any emotions at all. So AC Origins, with the magic that it brings in its open world design, really made me feel lonely. Really made me feel for Bayek as he wandered through these sandstorms, through these huge mountains, through valleys, through cities, through rivers, constantly just having time to think for himself and letting his memories haunt him. Even when Bayek reaches civilization, he's a stranger who constantly needs to gauge if the people he meets are friends or foes. I often wonder what the consequences on the psyche would be of going for such prolonged periods of time without proper human contact and relationships. What is it like for the psychology of an assassin to have such an antisocial way of life? Even as you form yourself and call yourself a brotherhood, you are not really being brothers outside of training, outside of the bureaus. You're working alone in the dark to serve the light. How does this affect one's mental health? I've always wondered this. And this whole effect is probably made worse by the constant threat of death and the constant necessity for violence and deceit. It seems so unnatural and inhumane to maintain a life where your default state of existence involves some sort of hostility, especially to the degree that it involves in the Assassin Brotherhood. How could someone stay sane after that? What amount of mental maintenance in an assassin's downtime is required to be able to stay sane? It's incredible to me how, after so many games, no real game has properly discussed this, because I think it's such an interesting and important part of the assassin psyche that I would love to see explored. I think in AC Unity, when Arno has his life come crashing down after he's abandoned from the Brotherhood, you explore this, and same in AC4. You always have these moments where the protagonist is down on his luck, but I've never really seen anyone explore what it is to be an assassin and how that affects your psyche. I think the closest we've ever gotten to that is with Mirage, where Basim is constantly battling with the instructions of the Brotherhood versus what he feels in his own mind, and how the Brotherhood is not really letting him explore that. But again, that has a whole different lore reason for why it exists that I don't think exactly has to do with what I'm talking about. However, even though it hasn't been explored in the stories, I think it is very much explored in the gameplay, especially in the last few games, notably Mirage and Origins. When you enter a fort in these ancient games, you really do feel like a different kind of assassin that you don't feel in Unity with the crowded street and the bustling atmosphere. It is always so quiet and deserted, and it makes you feel like you're alone as an assassin against an army. It is literally you against the world in every sense of the word. When you enter a guarded fort, it is one man against an army. If you are spotted, you could risk not only dying, but compromising the Brotherhood. The pressures of performing your function as an assassin seems psychologically unsustainable. Perhaps we think an assassin reaching old age is an accomplishment, but unless you reach peace and enlightenment like Ezio did, it is probably a larger mercy to die early, before the life these men and women choose to live takes its toll. And I often think about this when we glorify people like Altair and Ezio. If they were really happy, and if they really got the good ending, or if being an assassin is just a life of physical and mental suffering, and dying for a cause you believe in, believing that you've made change, is probably the better outcome for you. And this is something that I hope Ubisoft begins to understand, now that it seems like they're beginning to understand what Assassin's Creed is in the first place. It seems like they're slowly trying to understand their identity problem, and I've made a video about this regarding AC Mirage and AC Nexus that you can watch right now.